In 2023, you list the property, there is no guarantee that property is going to be sold. Be a little bit nuggety, have a bit of grit. You have to have some tough conversations with vendors, tough conversations with buyers. What I can say is that with experience provides skill set, and with skill set provides activities that you can actually persuade a buyer to act.
Welcome to the Upshot podcast by Homely, where we invite you into honest conversations with entrepreneurs, challengers, and long-standing legends shaping the real estate industry today. Today on the podcast, we get to interview Tim Heaviside, who's been in the Melbourne property space for over 21 years. He's worked in a number of different agencies, including Hocking Stewart, Fletcher's, and of course Woodards in his earlier stages, and now is the founder of Heaviside Real Estate, which has entered into the marketplace only a few months ago, and in a short period of time has had a great deal of success. Today, when we speak with Tim, we talk about some of the challenges that he's seeing in the marketplace, things that he would have changed in his career that has been extensive, of course, and some of the things that he loves to do in his spare time. Tim, great to have you on the program. It's our first edition here for the Upshot podcast here at Homely. We're thrilled to have someone of your caliber on the program here today, just to talk a little bit about your journey and what you've done over your career. So thank you very much for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be here, Ben.
Excellent. Now, I think a really good starting point, particularly because you're out in the trenches at the moment in this challenging marketplace. Give us a bit of a rundown as to how you see things at the moment. How are you finding the market?
It's certainly a price-sensitive market. 2022, we saw prices adjust, and 2023, how we're seeing is that more stock levels coming on, but still it's favouring the buyer. But what's not favouring the buyer is the interest rates. From my company perspective, I started 1st of September 2022, and now we're sitting early March 2023, and we've sold 15 properties out of 15 opportunities.
Excellent. So things are still selling. What are the clearance rates like at the moment in your market?
60-odd% in Melbourne, and certainly the eastern suburbs. So I break it down easy for a vendor to understand by saying, if I put 5 fingers up in my hand, I had 3 properties that would sell on the day of the auction. One would get passed in and sell shortly after, within 2 or so weeks, and one that's overpriced and not selling, and in effect helping the other 4 sell. And that's either based on the agent promising or advising their vendor a price that's unachievable, or the vendor wants too much money. And that's reflection of the market. Whereas 2021, even those vendors that were overshooting on their price point were eventually selling. So it was all 5 out of 5 or 10 out of 10, 100% clearance rate over a 6 or 7 week period. It was very, very little being withdrawn or getting snapped up by other agents with withdrawn listings.
Very good. And so are most of your properties going to auction at the moment, or is it a combination of private sale and auction?
Predominantly in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, it is auction. It's the main method. It's the one I believe in, even in a challenging market, which is where we're in. Certainly providing the best avenue for a vendor to sell prior to auction on the day or after. And so it's what I believe is the right method of sale. But we have had some private sales. For an example, we had an off-market sale in Rubens Grove, which we sold for $4 million. It was on the market previously via an auction, so that wouldn't have suited the vendor moving forward. And then we had an apartment, which you don't generally generate a lot of interest or buyer activity. So having a private sale was the right response for that particular client and that circumstance.
Absolutely. And are you finding that the conversations you're having with your vendors at the moment, are they challenging? Are they easy conversations? Are they aligned with where the market is at the moment, or is there a lot of education going on in the background?
Oh, without question. You have to be on top of your game and a knowledge of the industry and what's happening around you. For us at the moment, to give you an example of that, the borders have opened for China, so you can travel to China and Chinese people can travel here. You can't buy in Canada at the moment, so if you're sitting in someone's living room and you can articulate that, they go, that's what you're really after, a bit of product knowledge, information about what's happening in your industry and how you can convey that in simplistic terms that a vendor would understand and move forward with you. So you might say, so they can't buy at the moment say, in Canada, but they can buy in America and the UK, potentially New Zealand. But I tell you what's safe is Australia, and within Australia, the two big the two big cities are Melbourne and Sydney. And so how it affects us in Melbourne is that around schooling, there's over 100,000 students coming to Australia, to Melbourne, for tertiary studies. And what we've seen is that a new influx of those type of buyers and those families wanting to buy in, and it's time to capitalise on that.
Yeah. Well, it's very interesting. I mean, the way that you've just explained that, it makes perfect sense to me. And, I think you've got to remember, to everyone listening, that vendors don't do this every single day, right? So if you can explain it as simply as possible, then you're going to get your message across very, very easily. So I think you've done some fantastic stuff there. I know that you obviously represent the vendor, but we always like to ask, if you're a buyer in the marketplace, what are some tips? What do they need to do in order to get the property that they want?
If at auction, bid confidently, take control of the auction. Often as the auctioneer, I see and hear buyers say, let her have it. He wants it more. So if you bid with a bit of confidence, that can provide a winning strategy. Do your research, know what you're going to spend, bid confidently. It's like running to a cliff face that's in your mind, that the cliff face is 1.2 million and the bidding starting at 1.1. Bid confidently to your 1.2, have a little bit of flexibility. And what you're seeing is that there is good buying opportunities for those that are organised and have got the pre-approval and understanding with the future that interest rates are going to continue to rise, that you've got that ability to be able to service a loan, and you're not living outside your means. And then, go for it. Still one of Australia's best unkept secrets is buying property, because it'll look after you in time. The saying is, don't wait to buy property and wait.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm going to take that to bed tonight, knowing that I bought at the peak of the market, and it's just going backwards, but I'll hold on to it. So thank you for that. Makes me rest easy tonight. Well, that's good. So in terms of, I think, moving through to your career, so obviously you've won a number of accolades in the industry. You've worked at some of the prominent agencies across Victoria as well. You able to just give us a bit of a summary around your career, where you started and obviously where you are today?
Yeah, snapshot. I've been in the industry for 21 years. But had my own agency now for 7 months. I guess cut my teeth originally 21 years ago for Woodards in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne. I was there for a short amount of time. They went into receivership under that directorship at the time. Then I jumped over to Hocking Stewart. So one of my friends at Woodards, their brother owned a Hocking Stewart franchise. And then I got a tap on the shoulder from Fletcher's Real Estate. Fletcher's asked me to come over shortly after that. So I've made my mark within Fletcher's for close to 19 years. And then I had a bit of a gap, restraint of trade, if you like, gardening leave. That was for about 9 months, 2022. And it's put me in a position now where I've got a lot of tools and knowledge and skill set that I can pass that on to new vendors, colleagues, buyers, etc.
Absolutely. And so you've started your new brand, of course, Heavyside Real Estate. What are some of the, I guess, key points of difference that you're going to the marketplace with your own company?
It's a fresh brand, so it's cutting edge, it's sophisticated. We're a luxury boutique agency set in Surrey Hills in the east, where we service, which is predominantly Boroondara Whitehorse based. And I believe we could do some things better, some things differently, which we are. One of our skill sets is how we can market homes. A lot of agents believe that they can do things differently. We are doing things differently, and it's proofs in the pudding with 100% clearance rate. And I think sometimes you don't have to be the biggest to be the best. Obviously, sometimes being the best is the best. Vendors ultimately don't get an agent working for them. You don't get the company, irrespective if it was Fletcher's or Ray White or it's Marshall White or Dallas Craig. You don't get the company representing him. You get an individual agent. So there are really elite, fantastic agents within companies. So it's the agent that you get is the most important thing. And so, it was really something that I'm trying to take part in is building a strong brand in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne that in time will potentially create a legacy for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, was it a difficult decision? Is it something you'd always thought about doing, or is it something that just sort of came up and said, you know what, let's do this? Was this part of the journey or the plan?
Yeah, definitely. I thought long and hard about it because it was home for a long time, and it wasn't like I was disgruntled or something happened, or it was just my time. But after 19 years, it is a long time to be in the one area, and I had growth to do. I had something to give, and so I had ambition to be able to create something that's unique, different, and so we're creating our own culture and you know, I've said it before, but my team inspire me, and I inspire them. We're only a small agency with limited amount of people at the moment. We are growing, so we're just starting to gather a bit of momentum.
Oh, that's great. And are you finding that obviously you would have had an extensive database of clients throughout your big real estate career? Are people very receptive to this new brand? Are they loving what they're seeing?
Yeah, I didn't take the actual, my clients with me, if you like, a database. So it's all organic. But yeah, your name gets out there. And so by pushing my brand, the agency, the Heaviside Agency, people are recognising and connecting the dots. And so, yeah, I just had a vendor meeting just before this podcast, and he actually asked the same question, the client I'm selling their home tomorrow at auction. He said, I can see you've got you've got 10 listings on the go at the moment. How are you getting them? And I said, just like you, David, you reached out and got my little flyer and thought of me. You're in Surrey Hills, and you got your mother's property you're selling, Camberwell, and you thought I'd try this bloke out. And it's that's what the opportunities at the moment are presenting. But yeah, I'm using different initiatives. So Google AdWords, optimization, cutting edge technology with my branding company, which is LBD, who did the agency marketing. And some of those things in terms of Instagram and social media platforms are great for getting the brand out there in terms of what clients and really what the industry can see, what we offer. We're doing some amazing things with videography. I believe in the two principles of simplicity and certainty. So if you can just make it easy for people to understand and deliver it in a confident manner, you generally win over most people.
Fantastic. And do you find that obviously real estate's changed quite a lot over the last 10 to 15 years? I know certainly when I was doing it, it was about make as many possible phone calls as you can, and the person that makes the most phone calls wins. Do you still think that that's the way forward, or do you think that with the emergence of social media that's changed a bit?
No, it's without question, prospecting is a key element to be a successful agent and of lead generation, because from one activity leads on to another. So boards get boards, and the more listings that you have online, you're more likely to be called in as opposed to not having anything. Market share is important, but it's not the be-all and end-all. So prospecting can be over various formats. So it can be making direct phone calls. It can be social media content. You've got to really give everything a go. So prospecting could be movie nights or advertising externally on things, boards, VPA, lots of things, but you've got to do a manner of different things well to be able to be successful without question.
Absolutely. So, Tim, obviously you've started up this new business. You've been in the industry for quite some time, and you've worked your absolute fingers to the bone. We talked off air earlier about work-life balance and how important that is to you. Obviously, you're a prolific lister. I think back in 2020, you did 3.7 million in GCI and 181 sales. How do you manage all this? How does Tim Heaviside disengage from what he does just to get through the day?
I think, from pure numbers, and there are a lot of other agents that are doing more than that and some less, you've got to run in your own lane, and not look at others because it's like golf, I think, in terms of your handicap. You just got to play your own round, not someone else's. I can't play at Tiger Woods level or some absolute golfers put a club in their hand for the first time. So you just got to be in your own lane and do the best you possibly can. Not live someone else's life, but live your own. So I've learnt to balance. And I guess the luxury I have is that running my own agency can provide me time where I can do things and not do things. But I play a bit of golf. I'm a member of a golf club. I've got a classic Ford Mustang, so I'm part of the Ford Mustang Club. I love to cook. I love travelling, being around my family and having an odd glass of wines, getting out to some wineries and just enjoying time with my dog. So all these things provide balance, exercise, bit of running. So it's not all work, but I find when I'm running. And when I'm with my dog, I'm with my dog. And when I'm with my wife and my children, I'm with my wife and my children. And when I'm socialising, I'm with my friends. Rather than, I think it's an easy trap to fall into prioritising just work all the time. But when you're in work mode, be in work mode. You know, not being on the social media and seeing what text messages happening or, you know, who's booking you in for golf the following Thursday or some rubbish. You actually be in that work mode. So Dr. Fred Gross, who's quite an industry icon, he taught long ago there's different channels. So channel 2 might be work mode. Channel 37 might be at home mode. Channel 22 is when you're with your dog mode, that type of thing. So be in the mode that you're in, be there. That's the most important thing with balance.
Absolutely. It's a very good point you raise. I've listened to many podcasts on this topic, and if your focus and attention is being pulled in multiple different directions, you can't give it your all, right? So I think exactly what you just said, being in each specific mode will help you, you know, be well and truly in that moment. So very, very pertinent point, that, absolutely. Your cars are your babies, of course, and I've heard you are a fantastic cook. So at some stage in the future, you're going to have to cook a meal for Team Homely. That's legendary. What golf course are you a member of?
Box Hill. So it's a local course. Okay. 5 minutes to drive there. It's perfect. But I also, I play with different couple of other social clubs. So it's just important. Whatever floats your boat. Life's so short. Just experience all the things that really tickle and make you happy. Yeah.
The golf course is my happy spot. So yes, I feel you on that one. Now, obviously, you've been directors of multiple businesses, and you've had a range of success on that front. Is there any sort of key, I guess, nuggets to success when running your own business that you could, I guess, share with us?
Yeah, a few things. When I've started this agency, one of the most important things to me is customer service. It's also between the interactions with your colleagues and also the suppliers like Homely, that their relationships. So it's important to me at times to understand the different parts of the process in that you're sometimes the supplier and sometimes you're the customer, sometimes you're the customer, sometimes you're the supplier. And that's the same for colleagues. So sometimes I'm the director, sometimes I'm the teacher, sometimes I'm just the student, sometimes I'm the listener, sometimes I'm the advisor, sometimes I've got to explain things and explain again. So there's various things that you I guess, different hats you're wearing all the time. To get the right outcome. But the outcome for me is that people feel inspired to come to work, and that's our caption for our business, which is inspiring your next chapter in real estate. So it's not inspiring my next chapter, it's about inspiring the vendors, the buyers, my colleagues, people that we meet generally in the public. We're just trying to create a solution for their problems. Sometimes it's a colleague's problem that could be financial problems, get some more commission here at the agency, or it could be the vendor needs to sell for a certain reason. And I just love helping people, and that's one of the absolute foundations to be successful in this agent in real estate.
Yeah, it's very, very good point you raised. There's so many stakeholders involved in what you do, and without all of them ticking along and feeling involved as part of the process, it doesn't work. So it's a very good initiative. I like the way you're thinking about that. So we'll talk about that, but I guess if we move to some of the failures that you've had, because everybody's had failures at some stage in their life, and I think it's important just to learn from those. Is there one moment that you could think back on and go, that was pivotal to me as in terms of a failure?
Yeah, there's been issues obviously that have come up and gone. I mean, I think one of the issues that have happened in the past would have been that underquoting issue that did happen.
Yep.
And we've got better as an industry, but I don't know if it was directed at any particular person, but back then there was some issues associated with that. I've become a much better agent through that process, far more compliant, grown a lot, and that we've got a wonderful compliance process, procedures at this agency, Heaviside, that I think is best practice, and but that doesn't mean we'll always get it right, but I think we'll get it right most of the time, and that's what history has shown so far. But if in anything in life, I mean, that was an issue a few years ago. I think it was back in 2014, 15. It was a few years ago, and through anything that happens in life, I mean, I had my cousin's wedding, and I had my classic car as part of the wedding, and I got the car serviced, and then I got the car professionally detailed. I got the car filled up with petrol, took it to the wedding. I cleaned it again, put more petrol in. It was beautiful. It was in great condition, ready to go. And then picked up the bridesmaids, which was my role in the wedding, and then the accelerator cable broke.
Can you believe it?
And I guess it's what happens. Anything in life, there's going to be issues, but my job at that point in time was to get the girls to the wedding.
Yeah.
And so you have to think on your feet. So we, got them into another car, spoke to the bride, I guess from that though, it creates a bit of a story for the wedding. Oh yeah, Tim's car broke down, and so it's how you react. It's not so much there's going to be issues in anyone's lives, problems, and sometimes you've just got to honour the struggle, because life isn't smooth. It is going to go sour at point, and it's not what's happening to you, it's how you deal with anything.
Yep.
So and getting on with things, which can be challenging. So it's not like you just brush everything off, and you have to deal with things appropriately, and there's different timelines that how people can deal with it. But the only advice that I would give anyone listening into this podcast is that if you have little problems, which anyone has, try and get as much help and support that you can, because going through that period of time, I had a lot of people that helped me and helped the company, helped me personally. I just reached out and lent on people that I trusted for good advice that helped me through that process. I never try to do it through myself, and through that process, it's made me improve as an individual, as an agent, and as an agency.
That's pretty powerful. I mean, being a top performer and asking for help, I think that's really, really powerful. So I think that if you can apply that to your life, then you'll be a much better person for it. So, and I guess moving into where we are now, so we've talked about some challenges and failures. We're in a pretty difficult market at the moment, and there are a lot of agents across Victoria and across the country that really haven't felt the effects of a significant downturn. So it's going to be pretty difficult. What would you say to these agents? What advice would you give to them as we navigate these tricky conditions?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to go through 2008, the GFC, 2017 to 19 was that Royal Commission. So that's provided me, there's been other segments of the market's gone up and down, that type of thing as well. But what I can say is that with experience provides skill set, and with skill set provides activities that you can actually guide a vendor through or encourage a buyer, persuade a buyer to act. So, yeah, those things that aren't going for you at the moment, you might have that one property that you're stuck on. Or you just can't get a listing at the moment because you haven't got traction. There's lots of reasons and there's lots of frustrations as a real estate agent. You're struggling with motivation and lead generation. So what I would say is that from an agent that's been through those processes, through those periods of time, the one that we're in at the moment is no dissimilar. In fact, I think I nearly invited or welcome these times because that's when a better agent that's got those skills can actually be separated from an average or ordinary agent, and you can demonstrate that skill set, and it's proven because in 2021, you just list the property, it's going to be sold. In 2023, you list the property, there is no guarantee that property is going to be sold. So you're going to have to be a little bit nuggety, have a bit of grit. You have to have some tough conversations with vendors, tough conversations with buyers. Understand that you're presenting all offers to a vendor. It is not your home. It's a professional transaction, and you have to be professional to the client. What does the client want? The solution. What is the solution? Their property sold. What does the buyer want? They want to buy it. That's in simple terms. But so, you have to present all offers. You have to provide more skill set and knowledge to a vendor by asking good questions to a buyer. For example, at what price would you like to buy the property? No. Is it the price or is it the property? It's the price. When you say the price, how do you mean? Well, you're saying 2 million to 2.2. We wouldn't buy it for that. I understand that. So what price point would you buy it? At 1.8 million. So at 1.8 million, what you're saying to me, would you be willing to move forward on this property? You damn straight I would, Tim. Okay. So if the vendor would consider 1.8 million, would you be prepared to sign up that offer at 1.8 million? No, I don't think I would be. Okay. Well, they're not genuine. But if they did say yes, you've got to pass that feedback on to the vendor because you could be overpitching it. From that 5 options again, you could be part of this or this. You could be the problem by just not, conveying the right information for your client to make an informed decision.
And it moves the needle as well, right? You can create a deal out of nothing by just having those very simple conversations and just finding out what people are prepared to pay. So you're absolutely right. 2021, any agent could make money. This is where the tough get going, right? So,
and Ben, you know what I find? Agents are holding on to old figures. In recent times I've sold these. When was that? 2021. Really? Okay. What's happening in 23? Because that was 2 years ago.
Times have changed very much so. So in terms of agents that would be listening to this podcast, are there any sort of non-negotiables that you'd be saying you must be doing this in these markets? Is there any things that you would suggest are things that have to be done?
So many different types of things. So if you were to focus on lead generation, you're going to have to really be accessible to vendors and be in step with what they're looking for. Be hungry and be willing to accommodate for certain vendors just to get in the door in the first place. Chase the business up, win the business. Don't be scared to ask the question. Close. So too many agents are still saying, listen, what we can do is we can, Mr. and Mrs. Vendor, now that we've come out and appraised your home, we can provide you with a report. What report? You ask the question. You're well and truly within your rights to ask the question whether or not they feel comfortable to proceed. Have I done enough to earn your business? Are you willing to move forward with me? Based on everything you've heard today or tonight, are you okay? If you're okay, what we need to do is complete this agreement. I'll just go through with you now. These are closing questions that, these are non-negotiables, rather than, listen, what I'll do now, you don't have to make a decision. I'll provide you with a report. What on earth are you doing?
Yeah.
It's non-negotiable to me to actually close and ask the question. Non-negotiable.
Absolutely. So all the top performers I've ever seen are absolute perfectionists at asking those questions. I used to work with Sam Rogopoulos from Jealous Craig out in Northcote, and he was a magician, an absolute magician at the close, and it was magnificent to watch. But I love hearing that sort of stuff. I think that's really, really important, because if you don't ask the question, you do not get. So I think that's a really, really positive thing to bring from it. We're getting to the end of the podcast, Tim. I just wanted to finish with two more questions. We have sort of covered off on some of your failures, and this sort of covers in that question as well. But if you could go back to any point in your career and change one thing, is there anything that comes to mind?
I believe there's three people in life. There's people that live in the past, those that live in the present, and those that live in the future. My best friend lives in the past. He can tell you all our childhood teachers and friends of primary school and secondary, and I've really struggled to remember.
Yeah.
My wife lives in the now.
Yep.
So if you were to ask her now, oh, what's for dinner, honey? She'll go, oh, I don't know, I'm not hungry for dinner now. Well, you'd have to organise stuff, surely. I mean, she would start to think about dinner at 5 or 6 o'clock. I'm like, what? Because I'm a future-based person.
Yeah.
So I don't really hang on to the past too much. But to answer your question, perhaps I had many, many years ago a situation where I sold a property, and it actually it sold on a Saturday, and the buyer wanted to show their mum through on the Sunday, and they came and they had a look at it, and they got bad buyer's remorse.
Oh no! Deal breaker, mum and dad. No.
Yeah, and there was no cooling off. They'd bought it.
Yeah.
And I think I would like to have handled myself better in that meeting.
Okay.
For that one. For that, I don't really have many. I mean, anyone that knows me for a good period of time, I'm a genuine person who's always willing to help people and do things. Like, I don't really have any malice for anyone. So even if people haven't done the right thing with me, I just move on really quick, because I'm always looking at the nicest parts of people, and I forgive really quick. So if you're an enemy of mine, you're listening to this, I'm probably not even thinking about you or doing anything. I don't have many enemies, but if you're listening,
yeah.
I've forgotten or done. I moved on very quickly.
Yeah.
And then I think that's important for those that have missed the listing, that I got promised the listing as an agent. You're listening to the podcast and you're struggling to get over it. I really believe that you need to adjust the strings on your racket if you're playing tennis very quickly, not get emotionally all upset, and move on very quickly to the next job.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. I mean, this industry is so many hard knocks. If you get too many cuts along the way and you just stop to think about those at the time, you're just not going to go anywhere. So yeah, move on very quickly. It's about being thick-skinned, right? Final question, and this is one that I'm not sure because you sell in the multi-million-dollar market, but if you had $1 million to spend right now, where would you buy?
I think further out in the eastern suburbs, you buy, like, what I know is that people buy in price number 1, mode of accommodation, to location number 3, but so it's going to be a price point, certainly where I am.
Yep.
So at $1 million, you're buying further out, say Heathmont, that type of thing.
Okay.
Anything along a railway line is still going to be a key pillar in the future. So I reckon around that Heathmont's quite good.
Okay.
That sort of price point, parts in Ringwood, pretty good.
Yep.
I really don't know the other areas of Melbourne that very well.
Yeah.
I mean, I like Williamstown. I don't know how much it's priced. I like it.
Yeah.
I don't mind Fitzroy and stuff. I don't mind Bentley and things, but I don't really know these areas.
Yeah.
But I know the eastern suburbs very well.
Yeah.
And so I would answer Heathmont.
Okay. Good answer. Good answer. Well, Tim, thank you very much for joining us. That's pretty much wrapped up everything we have for you today. You've been an absolute superstar and our first guest, so we thank you very, very much for participating. And we thank you for supporting Homely as well. You're a big supporter of ours, and I think that we can do some great things together as we move forward. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben and the team at Homely, and appreciate being the first person on your podcast, and I wish you every success.
Thanks very much. We'll see you soon. Thanks for joining us on the Upshot podcast by Homely. I'm Ben Williams, and today we got to meet an industry legend, Tim Heaviside. Before you go, please hit follow, like and subscribe to make sure you have me and my next guest back in your ears in 2 weeks' time. Until then, make sure you share this episode with your friends and colleagues, find details and resources in the show notes, and get in touch via Homely socials with any questions. That's at homely.com.au on Insta, Facebook and TikTok.